we are going to talk about planning your first sourcing road trip. If you sell online like I do, you may discover, especially if you live in a smaller area, that there's just not enough good stores near you and you need to branch out. Maybe it's an hour away, maybe it's 2 hours away, maybe it's 6 hours away. So if you are getting ready to plan your very first sourcing out-of-town trip, let's talk about some things that you should think about as you're planning that trip. Now, my recommendation is that that first trip be a day trip, because you will make a bunch of mistakes in kind of routing and how to spend your day and where to go. And the less you can spend on things outside of buying merchandise, the better. So if you do a day trip, then that first trip, the only cost you have is gas and maybe a meal or two. Now, you can even avoid that if you go to the grocery store and you buy some food and maybe you load up a cooler in the car so that you can keep some food cool if you need to. If it's really hot, you may want to do that. Or you just bring things that don't need to be refrigerated. You know, peanut butter and jelly with an orange and some snacks is a great way to go for a lunch without spending very much money. So the first trip, the goal is to spend as little money as you can other than the stuff you're going to be buying. Everything you spend is going to get spread around the items you buy. If you spend $100 and you only end up buying 20 things, that means that you need to add another $5 to every item in cost of goods. Because you spent $100 and you only bought 20, you need to cover those costs by the things you bought. So you're going to do a lot better if you can do it and you can spend $50 and you can end up buying 40 items. Okay, that's not easy math. Sorry. If you spend $50 and you buy 25 items, easy math, I'm driving. You need to do it easy. So 50 divided by 25 items is only $2 extra per item. So you want to minimize your costs outside of the sourcing, and you want to maximize how many items you buy on that trip. That means going to bigger places where you can find a lot of things, and that means going to as many stores as you possibly can so you want to shop quick. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to be in and out in 10 minutes, but think about what items you do well on and go straight to those sections in the store, and the stuff that you don't do great on or you don't typically find much or you don't know much about, skip those sections of the store and get to the next store. So first, 3 tips. First trip is a day trip. Spend as little money as you can outside of the sourcing and figure out which sections of stores you're going to look at, and do not waste time on sections that you really are not knowledgeable about or you are not typically successful in. Okay, so you got that down. Along with that, I want you to think about, where should you be going? You have a few options. If you are doing this on a day where there are garage sales or estate sales or flea markets, you can go there. Personally, I find that I don't find a lot of the kinds of things that I'm looking for at garage sales, and it really takes me off the beaten path. I can spend a lot of time, especially in like rural areas or smaller towns, big small towns, really small cities. You can spend a lot of time driving from garage sale to garage sale with a lot of with a lot of miles between each sale. And so for me, garage sales doesn't make sense. But if you are looking for things that you find mostly at garage sales, then absolutely that's what you should do. In that case, what I would probably do is I would, in advance, kind of scope out which areas tend to have a lot of garage sales. Maybe do it the weekend before you're going to go, and really get a good feel. This area seems to have a lot of garage sales, because you can't plan very far in advance with garage sales. A lot of times they get like listed online or in like local Facebook groups. You might have to join the area's local Facebook group. I'm not an expert in that because I really don't source that way. But you might find it works really well. What I focus on is big thrift stores, Goodwills, because I just find Goodwills are really great deals in my area. The prices are good and they're predictable. I know what to expect. And it doesn't hurt that they all have bathrooms. I also really like Salvation Armies. Now, my town doesn't have a Salvation Army, and I just love it when I can find one. My last stop was a Salvation Army, and I found a couple of really great things. Now, I don't usually find a lot, but all it takes is a couple of really great items for me to be very happy with the stop. For some people, depending upon what you sell, you might be able to walk into a store and buy a ton of stuff, fill your cart. But as you get experienced and as you learn more and you realize that some of those things that you were buying at the beginning don't sell very fast and they don't end up selling for much money, I have found that I can find less and less at each store, and that's okay. For me, that's okay. It just means I have to go to more stores, and sometimes I have to drive farther away, which is why I'm on a road trip right now. If you are fine with selling bread and butter items that don't make a big profit, but you can find them fairly easily and you can sell a lot of them, and you're good with that, then you may not even need to go on road trips, or you might be able to go hit a couple of big stores and find everything you need. For me, I end up having to hit a lot of stores, and truthfully, I walk out of each store usually with 2 to 5 items. It's just my experience is that it's more stores. It's not finding a single store that is just a jackpot. So plan out your route, decide where you're going to go. This last trip, I actually used ChatGPT to help me figure out my route. Now, I will admit the addresses were just about all wrong. So I highly recommend, if you're going to use any kind of an AI to plan your route, double check and make sure those addresses are right. Yesterday I spent about an hour driving toward a thrift store, which was the first of several. It took me a little bit out of the way for the other ones, but not too far out of the way. And when I finally got there, I realized that I was being routed to an on-ramp for a highway. Not a building in sight. Yeah, that was a mistake. I forgot to check that address, and it was wrong. So luckily, I pulled over in a nearby parking lot, and I looked up the name of the store, and I did find it. It was another 20 minutes away, but it got me in the general direction. So check addresses for all of the places you're going, confirm the hours and that they're open that day. Do not rely on AI to get that correct at this point. But once you have confirmed hours and you have confirmed addresses, I think a great way to plan the trip is to go into ChatGPT or one of the others and plug it in and ask it to provide you with the most efficient route to get to all of these addresses between the hours of this and this, and making sure you arrive at each location at least 30 minutes before the store closes. That's what I'm going to be doing for all future road trips. Sorry about that banging noise too. I apparently forgot to lock the drawer that is right here. And I'm in a camper van, if you hadn't noticed, instead of a regular car. And in the middle of this video, I stopped, went to a store, decided I needed to see where I left off in this video. So I was re-listening to the beginning of the video that I had recorded and eating lunch at the same time. And of course, I went into this drawer to grab a spoon and forgot to lock it. And so what that means is it's going to bang in and out the whole time I'm driving, depending upon if I'm tilted that way or that way. So, and that's probably why you're noticing that you're seeing trees out here, and before you were seeing like a view off of the highway, because yeah, I'm in a different location. So the last tip I'm going to give you on planning this very first road trip is, presuming that you are going to be going back to this area again in the future, you need to take notes. You may believe that you're going to remember all the details, and you can do it tonight when you sit down and you can look at the receipts and you can tell which stores were good and which ones weren't. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. And maybe you have a better memory than me, but it all starts running together, especially the first time you're in some of these stores. So I highly recommend that you have a notepad, or you have an app on your phone or something where you can jot down some notes, even on the back of the receipt. And I'm taking notes basically saying, would I come back again? Are the prices good? You know, a little synopsis. So one store might say, felt like a hoarder store, very messy, but great prices and some good stuff. When I get home, I can sit down and look at all my notes, and then I can find a way to save that information for my next outing. Don't click out of the video yet, because I just want to share one last little thought. Once you have figured out like how this works, and you feel like you've got a handle on it, you know what you're doing, then consider doing an overnight trip. It allows me to spend 2 days for that tank of gas to get there and home instead of 1 day, and that really makes a big difference in how much cost has to be added on to each item.